Phillis Wheatley Peters. For those in person, Phillis Wheatley does not have a physical grave marker within Cobb's Hill Burying Ground. Please proceed to the marker labeled Phillis Wheatley to hear about the life of America's first poet of African descent. About 1753 to the 5th of December, 1784. Born in West Africa, Phillis Wheatley was enslaved at a young age and was taken to Boston in 1761, where she was enslaved by John and Susanna Wheatley. According to the National Women's History Museum, the name Phillis, quote, was derived from the ship that brought her to America, the Phillis, end quote. Her name prior to her enslavement is unknown. Phillis was taught to read and write by the Wheatleys and would be educated in Greek, Latin, astronomy, and geography, which was a very unusual education for an enslaved individual to receive. Phillis Wheatley is credited with being the first person of African descent to become a published poet in what would become known as the United States. Phillis Wheatley's first published poem, On Messrs. Hussey and Coffin, was published on December 12, 1764 in the Mercury, a Newport, Rhode Island newspaper. It was Wheatley's 1770, an elegiac poem on the death of celebrated divine and eminent servant of Jesus Christ, the Reverend and learned George Whitefield, which was, quote, published as a broadside and a pamphlet in Boston, Newport, and Philadelphia, end quote, that would launch her into the spotlight. Funded by the Countess of Huntington, Phillips traveled with Nathaniel Wheatley, the son of her enslavers, to England in 1773 to promote her collection of poems on various subjects, religious and moral, which featured a signed foreword by John Hancock and a portrait of the young poet. Phillis was granted emancipation upon her return to Boston. Phillis Wheatley would go on to marry John Peters, a free black man who worked as a grocer in the city of Boston. The couple was said to have had 3 children, but none survived childhood. Later in life, Phillis was unable to find a publisher for her second book of poems and would die after a bout of illness on December 5, 1784, at the age of 31.